Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we're going to be talking about the P. Diddy trial, which when this airs should already be underway. As we record this, the trial started, this is a Saturday, the trial started officially on Monday with jury selection. And as of the end of the week, they had narrowed it down to 43 prospective jurors who had already been screened. They go through a whole process. There was, a very lengthy questionnaire. I don't know how many people were actually summoned or answered the questionnaire, and then there's always hardships. And then there was some questioning, to get rid of people who, maybe seem not really into it or off or something, So they've gotten it down to 43. They, meaning, the judge and the attorneys have eliminated everyone except for 43 people. So on Monday, they are supposed to pick the 12 jurors and 6 alternates from those 43 people. So I guess the lawyers are just going to use their peremptory challenges. Each side gets to kick off a certain number of people. I don't know what it is in this case. It's always different. For any reason they want to. They just go back and forth until they have 12 jurors and 6 alternates. And then the opening statements are supposed to start the same day on Monday. We'll see. Things always come up. There were a number of different issues that came up during this last week regarding witnesses or things that were going to be, whether or not things were going to come into the trial or not. So it is underway. And, this has been, I don't know how long it's been. It was a speedy trial. Was it like March of last year, or has it been a year that he's been in custody?
No, I feel like he was in custody. I feel like it was, somehow I have September in my head.
Okay. That sounds more like it. I mean,
so this is speedy.
It's pretty speedy.
How big this trial is.
He did not waive his right to a speedy trial. So, because he could not get bail, as we all remember. And so he is not wanting to sit in that detention center, any longer than he has to. And
September 16th. Sorry. That's when he was arrested.
Okay. So he, has not had access, to hair dye or hairdresser. He's all gray.
Yes.
There's no cameras in federal court, so they have the sketch artists. And it's not very flattering to him.
No, not
and
flattering
actually,
at all.
This particular sketch artist, I think, is particularly bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure Diddy looks bad, but maybe this sketches make him look like look real bad. But his hair is gray, and his beard is gray, and they've put him in a sweater and a pair of glasses, and they're trying to make him, be presented in the best light. So, of course, there has been a ton of news, and the focus has really been on, what he's been charged with, and all the allegations and the freak offs and the baby oil and the everything. He's being charged 5 different counts made up of 3 different crimes. There's the racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and also transportation across state lines for prostitution. And so there's a series on, it's Harvey Levin, who does TMZ, owns TMZ, does the TMZ show, and he produces this content. It's on this new, I don't know, is it called a network or platform called Tubi?
Mm-hmm.
And so he has these a series of shows produced by TMZ called The Downfall of Diddy. And so there's 4 different shows, but we've wanted to focus on this one. It's called The Downfall of Diddy, His Defense.
Mm-hmm. And
we haven't heard a lot of people defending Diddy.
Except for his children.
And so we thought we would just take a look at that because, after seeing this, I got a little worried, when you hear the allegations against him and how awful they are. And of course, there are 4 victims who are going to testify. And the first victim who came forward, who started this case, was his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, who also filed a civil lawsuit against him for sexual assault and battery, sex trafficking, and he settled it in one day.
Yes.
Infamously. And then these charges were brought, and she was the main witness, the main victim. But then since then, 3 other women have come forward who are going to testify anonymously, and they amended the indictment to add more charges against him.
Mm-hmm.
And that the video of him assaulting Cassie as she's trying to leave a hotel, that is going to come in.
Yes.
It's been deemed admissible. And so, when you see all that, you go, oh gosh, it's awful. And the charges and all the stuff people are saying. But then after watching this and all of the various ways that he's going to defend himself, I got a little worried. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely got worried. I mean, it's hard to listen to. I mean, they interviewed a lot of defense attorneys, and I get it. This is a defense attorney's job. Everyone deserves, even Diddy, everybody deserves their day in court. Everyone deserves to have someone represent them, and he has a lot of money, and he's going to, hire the best. So it is hard listening to them talk, but they're not wrong with some of the things that they're pointing out. And they also created, I guess, another part of this is they did sort of a mock trial. It sounds like what they did is they found 12 people of varying backgrounds and ages and, ethnicities and all of that. And had them kind of listen to what all the defense attorneys were saying. And it sounds like also what prosecution gave them sort of a taste of what both sides, and then asked them to decide, is he guilty or innocent of these things. And when you're listening to them, I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but when you're listening to them at the end, you're kind of like, oh yeah, these are good. Yeah. When you really sit down and look at what is the letter of the law? Like, how do you say that this is what was going on? It is very hard, some of these. And it is like, when you think about something like racketeering and, sex trafficking and some of this stuff, it's a little bit of, oh yeah, okay, what is that? And what does it mean to prove that? And it, spoiler alert, it wasn't unanimous that he was guilty of sin for everything. It wasn't unanimous.
Was not unanimous. Well, one of the charges was unanimous.
Yes, one was, but the other two weren't.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of elements. So, like the racketeering charge, which is usually reserved for organized crime, like the mafia and that type of thing. But it doesn't have to be. It's just any group of people working together in a conspiracy to commit a crime. And one person does something over here and one person does something over here. Although, to my knowledge, none of the other co-conspirators are being charged.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about racketeering in terms of like committing crimes to commit these other crimes, to traffic women or anyway, there's a lot of elements to each one. And you can see the mock jury that they did kind of struggle with all of the elements, because in the racketeering conspiracy, one of the elements has to do with profit.
Yes.
And they debated, well, did he make any money doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. You have to prove every single element of all of these crimes to convict. So this is not a slam dunk by any means. And what they did was, so they produced these TMZ documentary, I don't know what you want to call them. It's not really a documentary, but they did one for the prosecution and one for the defense, and they had the mock jurors watch both of them. And so that was kind of like their quote unquote trial. But it was, so they I don't know, it's hard to know how to talk about this, but they kind of go through a little bit of the history about when his March 24 was when his Miami and Bel Air homes were raided.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they got a lot of the evidence that they used to, because this is before the indictment. They got a lot of this evidence. They apparently got a lot of videos.
Yes.
Of these freak offs. That's where they got the 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Yes.
Which his lawyer disputes. He says, well, it wasn't 1,000 bottles. I don't know. And, they obviously got enough information out of these raids that, to use in, bringing this indictment, or putting this indictment. So, they go through like just kind of his reputation.
Yeah. I mean, they interview a lot of this particular of the TMZ. This one, they interview a lot of defense attorneys. And so we hear from Mark Garagos, whose daughter, is it Tenny Garagos is the attorney for the defense.
One of the attorneys for defense.
And so he very much, he's putting on his defense attorney hat, but this one, I don't know if Mark Garagos was a good choice, because his daughter's right. Like, I really feel like he was siding with her. Like I don't feel like he was being objective the way maybe some of these other attorneys were being a little more objective. It just kind of felt like, his daughter convinced him of this. I don't know. It just...
Yeah. In fact, one of the things I read about the first week of this trial was that Mark Garagos was in the courtroom every day watching all of this. And like a proud dad, I guess, going to watch his daughter, which I would be embarrassed if my dad did that. And also the judge actually admonished him because he has been being so public, going around talking about this. And, because it's, I I don't know if it's because it's his daughter. He just likes the attention because people are calling upon him because his daughter is involved in this. But the judge kind of admonished him that, hey, you're an officer of the court and you need to kind of cool it
Yeah.
with your behavior.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he should have said, listen, my daughter is one of the attorneys. I'm not going to comment. He shouldn't be commenting because he obviously has some inside baseball knowledge that the rest of us don't have. And that's not fair. And that's not like an impartial expert on the other side. But one of the things that he points out is, which is true, that what's different about this case versus R. Kelly and Epstein was there are no minors involved. Mm-hmm. Now, there could have been. We have heard stories of minors,
civil cases.
Yeah, of children as young as 9, but nobody that's part of this particular case is a minor, which makes consent, this idea of consent, much trickier, much trickier. And so, and a lot of these, they also interview Joe Tecopina, who was A$AP Rocky's. He's so proud of himself. I just came off a win with A$AP Rocky. If you heard about me, I'm like, oh, okay, buddy. And then we also hear from Jose Baez, who's Casey Anthony and Aaron Hernandez, and got both of them off. This guy, if anything happens to you in the state of Florida, find Jose. Yeah, he's your guy. We also hear from Ebony K. Williams, who gave us a list of all the things she did, and all I wrote down was New York housewife.
Well, because
I don't know her from anything else.
She's kind of responsible for ending the Real Housewives of New York. She was on the very last season, and it was the worst season because all she did the whole time was this was right after. This is during the pandemic. It's after George Floyd, and she was just constantly lecturing Ramona about Black Lives Matter, and it's like, this isn't really the forum for this. I understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
and then after that, they disbanded the entire cast and started over again.
Did you just hear this just came out? And now they canceled the second one. The second New York one, which I think makes complete sense because I don't think you watched it. It was going.
I watched some of it. It was terrible.
It was terrible, and there were too many people on the show that had gone too far. It was just. You were going to have to get rid of half the people anyway just to move forward. So anywho. Yeah. But I think trying to convince Ramona Singer, like I believe I see what you're trying to do and the importance of it, but this is not the platform for it. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Well, one thing I didn't like about this movie, I keep calling it, I guess I'll call it a documentary. That seems to be generous, calling it a documentary.
It's just like Harvey Levin sitting on, basically he didn't even meet with these people in person.
No.
It was all over video. He didn't even bother seeing anybody in person and just interviewing people from a Zoom meeting. This is what this documentary was.
This is what it was. It was he's in a room sitting in a chair and he's staring at a big screen, and then the person he's interviewing is on the screen. So it's just this whole gaggle of defense attorneys, one after the next, including one of Diddy's lawyer, the other lawyer besides Garagos's daughter, this guy Mark Agnifilo. And I felt like it was a parade of misogyny.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It was not good, of all of these men talking about, well, what is consent? Just undermining everything that we have been fighting for. I mean, literally, they're talking about, well, why did they go? Well, why did they stay? Nobody was forcing them to be there. They could have left. And it's like, really?
Really? Did you not
watch Cassie try to leave and we saw what happened?
Because Garagos at one point, this was the most egregious thing that Garagos said. So he was really dismissive. I think it was dismissive of these women and their experiences and what they were saying. And he was like, well, is having a woman, flying a woman to Vegas for the weekend, is that sex trafficking? I mean, hey, I used to see women flying to Vegas all the time and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets into this whole thing of, he talks about, he and Cassie had what he's saying is a spiritual and emotional relationship. And And the thing is that he gets in, and you're just looking at him like, did you and I not see the same video that they've replayed already for us here? We saw it 2 or 3 times in this documentary.
At least.
So I'm sorry. How in God's name can you argue that someone was free to leave if you see that? That was her trying to leave. That was her trying to leave towards the end of the relationship too.
Yeah, it was, I think, okay, so Garriga said, if you wine and dine someone for sex, that's not sex trafficking. People were dying to go to Diddy's parties. And then he kind of mocks this whole Me Too movement.
Mm-hmm.
They can decide to just leave. These are just things he just said. And then Mark Agnifilo, he was equally incredulous. He's like, there's no, you can't have sex trafficking in a 10-year adult relationship. And then there's Garrigos talking about the spirited and emotional long-term relationship.
Yes.
It's impossible that there was
their
any sort of
on-off relationship, meaning like she did go at some point.
She kept trying to go.
Leave. Again, how many of these stories we just did for our Patreon, The Burning Bed, a classic self-abuse story. That woman left many times. She tried to leave many, many times. But guess what, Garrigos? He would tell them, I will come and kill you. I will find you. And that's why they stayed. These guys were just, and the other part of what they were saying, now I'm going now. So the other part of what they're saying is they're taking this attitude of, well, and did they go to these parties wanting to be famous and using drugs? And, this idea of, and then they took drugs because they went to the parties and they took drugs. I'm sorry, but we learned that there was drugs mixed in with the baby oil. So nobody, that is, did he, I doubt he gave people baby oil and said, yeah, this is going to drug you and make you unable to consent to anything that you're doing. Do you consent now? Like, no, that's not how it worked. People, that's the other thing. Someone might give you a drink, or even maybe you're doing drugs. Like, who cares? But that's the problem. The problem is that yes, they voluntarily went there and maybe they voluntarily took the drugs, but they did not ask to be part of this freak off into the extent of what it was.
Let's back up. Maybe they consented to get on an airplane and go somewhere to meet Diddy, but what did they think they were getting on an airplane to go do?
Yes. Someone
told them, hey, Diddy wants you to come, fly to wherever. He's having a big party, and he wants you to come. And they're like, okay. It's not like someone said, hey, Diddy wants you to come to this party where you're going to be drugged out of your mind. You're going to not be able to control your thoughts or do anything. And you're going to be sexually assaulted by dozens of people. And then you'll wake up in the morning and you won't have any idea what happened. Would you you still want to go? I mean, that's just not what they were told. And also the drugs that they were giving them, we're not just talking about alcohol and maybe like some cocaine or something. We're talking about ketamine, GHB, ecstasy. And again, it may have even been like mixed in with the baby oil. So consent to do what?
Yeah.
They did not give consent to be abused and assaulted and drugged. I'll tell you that. They were tricked.
Yes.
Because they were told that, that they were, going to go in a private jet or whatever off to some fabulous place and go to this great party. And, maybe they might be able to be in Diddy's next video or this or that. I mean, they were lied to. They were tricked. This is, it's a premeditated crime.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is they were talking, Harvey Levin asks, well, as a defense attorney, like, how do you explain away the video? And was this Diddy's attorney, Agnifilo? He basically says, hey, how do you explain away the video? Okay, well, think about the worst day of your life. Is what you do on the worst day of your life who you are as a person? No, of course not. And I'm thinking to myself, that is the dumbest argument I've ever seen. The worst day of your life is you and your partner have you yell at each other in the hallway, or you're like, I hate you, fuck you, like stomping away. The worst day of your life is not kicking with your leg your partner in the face,
Dragging her.
So I'm sorry, is your worst day of your life grabbing her by the hair and dragging her down the hallway? That's just so insulting. Worst day of your life. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, the things that these men were saying were so disgusting. I mean,
Yeah. And Nifilo also
here-
said, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, their whole defense in a nutshell is that, Diddy is a sex freak, but he's not a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to have sex. He likes to videotape it. I guess he likes to have these parties. But everyone who was there, they're completely consensually wanted to be there, was excited to be there, knew what they were doing, consented. And interestingly, the mock jury brings this up, but of course, none of these defense attorneys bring it up. You can revoke consent at any time.
Yeah.
So maybe you thought you were going somewhere to do something and you consented to that. And like I just said, you get there and you realize that this is something very different.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to be here anymore. But who's going to take you home? Because someone flew you there in a plane.
Well, and is trapping you there, has taken your things away from you, and you don't have any way of getting that. And listen, maybe some of these women consented to like have sex with Diddy. Let's just say that's what it is. But did they then consent to sleep with all these other guys? Did they consent to be drugged? Right? There's so many layers to this. And then this Agnifilo guy, he then makes this point about Cassie. They're already starting to disparage Cassie, and they're going to make her look terrible. And, she's very pregnant right now, Cassie.
Is she?
She's pregnant, which is great. I'm happy for her, but she's very pregnant, like 7-8 months pregnant.
Oh,
so that's going to be, I really like, this is very stressful for you and the baby. Like, ugh. So I'm nervous about that. But I'm also wondering, like, how is it going to look when you're, this pregnant, very pregnant woman? Because basically, Agnifilo is saying 5 years after they break up, she sues him for money. And who does she call? Who do you go to? Do you go to the authorities? No, you go and you sue him civilly. This question being like, if he was such a danger, why not get him locked up? And it's a little bit like, she didn't think she had any of that. She did. They opened up that extent. She finally had a civil opening to do something, right? Because that law changed. It was almost a year. So she knew she had this opening, and my guess is the prosecution has to bring someone from. They've got to have some experts talking about this, about like the 5 year, why it took 5 years, because Cassie was just so happy to get away from him, I'm sure, and running for her life. And she probably didn't want anything from him. And then she had this opening and she sued him. And then all of this other stuff came about. That's how it came about.
Yeah. And you know what? If he hadn't settled with her in one day, which if that's not an admission of guilt, I don't know what is, then maybe the feds wouldn't have looked into it. But I think that raised a real red flag. And I'm sure there had been things going around for a long time. And, maybe they had other priorities or things they were dealing with. But when that came up, they probably interviewed her and, to find out, well, okay, maybe we can do something with this. And then she was at a point too where she, felt she could talk about it. I mean, and that's why the statute of limitations on a lot of these crimes is very long.
Yes, that's why we got these laws changed, because we now understand them.
Yes.
And understand what victims go through.
Yeah, it's like, in California, it might be longer now, but I know the statute of limitations on rape used to be like 8 years. It might even be longer now. But yeah, because it does. It takes longer for people to be able to feel comfortable to talk to anyone, even law enforcement. They don't really trust anybody.
But you also have to think about, everyone's acting like, well, Diddy is a music producer and this isn't organized crime. And I'm like, but he operated this business like organized crime. He operated it like it. I don't understand why.
Keeping people quiet. And that's another thing. Like, several of these defense attorneys talked about how, they feel like part of the consent was that these women accepted money, they accepted career opportunities, they accepted housing. Well, that's just another way to trap them.
Yeah.
Because then if you don't consent, what, you're going to find yourself kicked out of your house the next day. You're going to find yourself with no money, out on the street. Like, that's even worse. That traps you even more.
Well, yeah. And is he dangling tomorrow? I'll call that agent tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll get you that meeting tomorrow. Just come to the freak off tonight and tomorrow I'll do it. And then tomorrow. That's another way that these men, they dangle these things is, oh yeah. And the other thing too is there are lots of people that participated in these freak offs. My guess would be is I think there probably were people that were okay with it. Like, we have not heard from every single person. What we're really talking about is not everybody wanted to be there. And that was the issue. And that people felt trapped and they couldn't go.
He's also accused of part of the sex trafficking is like, and here's where the conspiracy comes in. He's not organizing this himself. Okay. He has dozens of people out there who are organizing, getting all of these people to one place and setting up this place where they can have this party. So he had assistants who were rounding up male sex workers, putting them on planes and taking them to these parties, because he liked to watch these male sex workers have sex with Cassie and whatever other girls, women he could get there. And so, and they're using intimidation and all the other kind of stuff to keep these people quiet, to keep the people keep doing it, whatever. That is the conspiracy. And it's just, and that Agnifilo, he said something like, this isn't a racketeering case. This is a case about threesomes. He keeps bringing up threesomes. Like, this is, Diddy, he just liked to have threesomes. And it's like, well, then why did he need to bring in male sex workers?
Yeah.
Multiple male sex workers to these parties.
Well, and then why do you need to drug people?
Right.
Why do you need to drug people? I mean, hello, Bill Cosby. Why do you need, right? It's just like,
yeah.
Psych Legal Pop will be back after these messages.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like, it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, one thing, I do believe that this is one thing that has not been talked about enough, that was brought up in this, that I agree with, which is that what's happened is the media has reduced Diddy as a monster. And it's sort of like this idea of, here's a black man who's self-made. He's a millionaire, billionaire, created all these businesses, very successful, that he pays all of his taxes. This is Agnifilo is like, pays his taxes, follows the law. I'm like, okay. And he's saying now we are attacking, the world could not take him down any other way. So now we're attacking him in the bedroom, and that this is a takedown of a very successful black man. And I do think, because we see this in the deliberations of the jury, that this race does place a huge issue. And there was one kind of older Black man on the jury who really, and rightly so, he was just a little bit like another Black man in prison. Like, am I really going to do this? Am I really going to participate in sending another Black man to prison? And one thing that they did point out was that, Elliot Spitzer, apparently same charges, same thing. He I guess was prostitution over state lines. I don't know what exactly he did. But he wasn't prosecuted. It was the same charges, but he's a white man. So why wasn't he prosecuted?
Well, no, he was not charged with racketeering. He hired sex workers to come from New Jersey to New York, and so somehow he's the same as Diddy.
I don't know. I'm just making the argument.
No, I know I know they brought that up, but that's what that's a bullshit argument, Agnifilo. It's bullshit. And this successful Black man thing. Oh, we don't like we can't get him any other way, so we're going to get him because he likes to do threesomes. I mean, these are the most asinine arguments, and I'm sorry about that juror. That's not this another Black man in prison. This is not another Black man in prison. He happens to be Black, but he's going to prison because he used his money and his fame and whatever. It had nothing to do with him being Black. He used these other things in order to exploit other people and for his own self-gratification. Yeah. So don't feel bad about that, Mr. Juror.
Yes. Well, and so then we get into jury selection, which I always found fascinating. We see Dr. Phil, who I think has gotten some eye work done. That's just my allegedly. I think he got some stuff around the eyes. And he talks about this, and I thought both he and they also interviewed Joellen Demetrius, who is one of the trial jury experts for OJ.
Very
successfully. So what I think, I can't remember which they were talking about, is that you need to find, for the defense, you need to find jurors that are truly open-minded. So people obviously that haven't made up their mind, but also people that have the ability to change their minds. So someone, I guess Dr. Phil's asking these questions like, has there ever been a time where you believe something to be true and then, you got new evidence and did you then believe it and that kind of thing. Also, what else did they mention?
They said people who, this is from Joellen Demetrius. She said, you want jurors who are sympathetic to his lifestyle and career. Yes. And also African-American jurors, a la OJ, because Black men, they find these men highly aspirational. Yeah. And they're willing to overlook things. And she said when it comes to female jurors, you want to know if they've ever if they've ever compromised values to get ahead. Yeah. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah. But also, but she also mentioned that how female jurors in general, because I would think that wouldn't you want more Black male jurors? But what she was saying is, but female jurors women tend to judge other women more critically. So that it's maybe better to have, I was thinking the other way around. Wouldn't you want more men than women? But what she was saying is, no, because women are harsh. And so you need women who are going to be able to say, well, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you go? Right? Like I was in a bad relationship and I left. Right.
The women's behavior. Yeah. And then, but Dr. Phil was talking about how you don't want jurors who have daughters of that age, who could see their daughters. This is very complicated to find, because there is so many different factors, and this is something that came up in the real jury selection, where people were asked a lot about this from the reporting that I read. Like Joellen Demetrius said, you don't want anyone who's been sexually assaulted or abused. Oh no. But yet you also want people who are open to talking about lurid details, like that's not going to freak them out. But I think with this current jury selection, it sounds to me like, I don't know, who doesn't know someone who or has been the victim themselves. That's pretty hard. I mean, you're not going to find a jury that has no experience with anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's just people who can have the ability to put it aside and think critically about it. Or not.
Well, this is what Dr. Phil said that I thought was interesting, is he talks about, you want to think about the collective personality of the group.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you do not want a group of people that all get along. You don't want them all kumbaya. You want them to be divided and not get along. And I think as a as a defense, that's what you want, because mistrial. And, obviously it doesn't mean that he can't be retried, but it's just each mistrial means that, just like what we're seeing with Karen Reed, there's a little bit of like harder and harder, even though people now know, what the prosecution has and what their story is going to be, but it's the same for both sides. So anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, and this was another thing that they talked about, another defense, which is sort of this prosecuting the FBI, that they're overreaching. Now are they coming into our bedrooms?
Mm-hmm.
So I would think someone who maybe is a little bit of a anti-government overreaching, right, kind of person might be good for the defense as well. But you're absolutely right. When you have, 43, I don't know if they know what order people are going to be called in, if they know who number 1 is and who number 43 is. But I'm sure what they're doing right now is just trying to figure out, like, what's of these 43 people, what's the best combination have, that will create. I mean, defense just needs to find some division in there. Prosecution needs to figure out who's going to be the alpha.
Yeah. And also the, like what's going on in our country right now, this, distrust of institutions, and look at, like what Trump is talking about. And Biden did too. When Hunter Biden was convicted, he said that this is just they're going after his son. It's a political thing. And then Trump says the same thing, that it's political. So, this abuse of authority, overreaching, it's sort of ingrained right now in our country, no matter what side you're on. Like, everybody accuses everybody. So there's a lot of skepticism of these justice related institutions.
Yes.
So, it always comes down to jury selection. That's where you win or lose a case. And so they have this mock jury, and, they've watched these 2 documentaries of each side. And it was interesting because I couldn't tell if these were actors or these were real people, because a lot of them seemed too articulate or something to be.
Oh, you think?
Real people. My first inclination was these are actors. It just seemed a little too smooth, but I do think that they picked up on a lot of jury dynamics. So like a lot of people giving their opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've served on a jury, and so I've seen these things. People start speculation. People start speculating about things. They start comparing. Like, there was this one guy, when they were talking about the comment made by I don't know if it was Garagos, who said about athletes or people flying, people to Las Vegas or whatever. And then this one younger guy pops up and he says, athletes do that all the time. They fly people in. And so, compares, like, bringing in things that have nothing to do with the case. There was definitely differences between the men and the women. And that one guy, the older guy with the dreadlocks, he really dominated. Like, he almost wouldn't let many other people talk.
Well, he dominated, and so did that other guy that's like, we need to follow the money. That's, this is how things are done. I always follow the money. It's like, oh, shut up. Like, what? He's like, sure, this is what I do in all my federal cases.
Yeah. And what do you do for a living, sir?
Yeah. It's like,
follow them.
I work at Jiffy Lube.
Yeah. And the strong personalities dominate. There were some people in there, this could have been the editing, but there was like this real one quiet white lady who didn't really have much to say, and there was a couple of people we never heard talk at all.
Yeah.
The dynamic of that, when you think about a case like this with this many issues, we're talking about race, we're talking about celebrity, we're talking about this distrust of institutions. And then you get a jury of really super diverse people, which is going to be, this is New York City.
Yeah.
It's going to be very diverse. I don't know how you get 12 people to vote to convict.
I don't know.
Or to acquit.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely what we saw was there were these two men, and three men almost, who were very dominant. But it was interesting when they started talking about more of the consent and women and all of that. Some women then piped up.
Yeah.
I was like, good. And they piped up and they're like, hold on a second. Let's roll
you can
it.
change your mind. Yeah.
Like, let's roll it back here. And they pointed that out. And I think that was really good. But again, we saw, and it was a woman who said, I don't see how, Cassie, how can you have a 10-year relationship and not consent? And again, we're back to that same issue that we have.
It's abuse. It's abuse. He abused her. We saw him abuse her on camera. How many times did he actually abuse her? Oh, and one thing that came up in the pretrial stuff that was happening this week was that the defense is trying to get in evidence they want to be able to present evidence that Cassie was violent.
Yes, I saw something about that. Like, it's going to be like mutual destruction.
Right. This is one of the oldest tropes that these men use. We've seen it in we saw it in the OJ case.
Yep.
We see it in all these cases where these men are accused of battering a woman. She hit me too. She was combative too. We had mutual combat. This mutual combat comes up over and over and over again.
Well, just keep playing the tape from the hallway. I didn't see Cassie at all. All I saw Cassie do was try to
she was defending. She was like trying to keep from getting hit in the head and in the face.
We did not see her throw an arm up. We did not see. No. So if this is mutual destruction, okay, we're not. I've yet to see it.
That just pissed me off when I heard that.
It's it is. And this is the other thing too, is we are different people now. And see, this is the other thing. Like, again, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how exactly other women think about these things, but are you really going to say all this stuff to a group of women and they're all going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. I mean, we just know so much more now. We understand so much more now. And we are far more understanding of how people get stuck in these abusive relationships. So after all this, you're going to talk down to us and talk to us like we're idiots? Oh.
Yeah. I mean, what year is this that we're defending this man? I mean, but again, there's a high likelihood that this is going to be a hung jury. But so anyway, they did their own little vote for whatever it's worth. So on the racketeering conspiracy, it was 6 guilty, 6 not guilty. On the sex trafficking, it was 10 guilty, 2 not guilty. And then on the transportation for prostitution, it was 12 guilty. And I think that was based mostly on the stories and the videos of the women and the Cassie video. So you believe, but see, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
You believe these women were trafficked for sex, yet you don't, you can't be unanimous on the sex trafficking.
Yeah, I think that the word trafficking is really confusing people. I think that I really wonder if trafficking, because I think people keep thinking about bringing women, like like thinking about it in terms of minors through state lines, and then like
massive numbers of people.
Yeah. And then locking them in some brothel somewhere and that kind of thing versus, thinking about, right. Women that came to audition for him and Cassie, you know what I mean? It's like, well, is he really trafficking them? Is he really
did they come voluntarily?
Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, they came, but that's the whole thing is that these athletes that are flying women out, yeah, no one's investigating that because everything's consensual. Because the guy's like, hey, come to my after party afterwards. We're going to do it. And then let's go. Like that's,
they know what
and that's exactly what happens.
Right.
And so when everything happens that both people have consented to, it's very different. I was very, I was surprised.
Confusing. It was, this is a very confusing outcome.
Yeah. Well, the racketeering really confused them because where was he making money? Where was he profiting from this? And I think that that's part of the problem is like, obviously the people around him were profiting from him having these parties because he was paying people to do that. But I think they keep coming back to how was he personally Diddy profiting from these parties.
But does profit have to be monetary?
I don't know. I mean, the guy who said, follow the money, he was the one that was.
I guess. They also really dismissed it outright because they're like, well, this is like mob type stuff. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of dismissive of it. I don't know. But
it was, he did operate. I mean, see, this is the thing is that how much were these jurors shown? I wish we knew specifically what they were shown. Were they just shown these 2 documentaries and that's it? And they know nothing else about it. One woman admitted like she really didn't know the case at all. Like she was a true, had no idea, no fact, not been following it like anybody else. But like how much had these other people been following what's going on and what's happening? And I also think there are some people that just like to pick what is not popular. Yeah. There are just those personalities that they're always going to argue the other side of things and just be a pain, and instead of just because they have to be different, because they have to be heard, because they have to be whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I guess we're following this case now.
Yes. We shall see what happens. So there will be no cameras. This will not be televised.
No. It's federal court. So there's no cameras in federal court. So we just have to read. We have to read the news.
We have to read it.
We have to read the daily coverage.
Can't possibly read. I'm just going to listen to a bunch of podcasts.
Well, watch TMZ. They're closely following it.
Yes.
And TMZ, Harvey Levin is a lawyer. He's, he is more of a critical thinker than a lot of these people. So I don't mind him.
I don't mind, honestly, I don't necessarily mind any of them. Garagos I minded because I feel like he has no business being there. Mm-hmm. And I also kind of feel like Diddy's lawyer, doesn't have a business being there. I feel like we should have just heard from these other defense attorneys. Give us some general things. You're not associated with this case at all. Give us some general ideas of what this is. And I do think this is interesting. And I do think that it's important that, that there are, that we have to look at things from different sides. We have to push ourselves to hear things that we don't necessarily want to hear so that we can think critically about it and go, okay, am I still going to defend this? Well, why am I still going to defend it? And you and I were talking about this before we started recording, which is we live in a world where we have these algorithms that are constantly just feeding us the same information over and over again. And is that really, is that really the best for us? And it is preventing us from living, I think, how we're supposed to live, which is encountering new people, new ideas, new thoughts, being challenged in ways, all of those kinds of things. And it's just, we're being, I'm not like a conspiracy theorist kind of person, but it does feel a little bit like we're being controlled to think certain ways. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's so subtle.
Yeah. All right. Well, to be continued.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you like our podcast, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review. We would appreciate that a lot. We're also covering right now Sister Wives. We're winding down season 19. Those episodes come out on Monday. We're also watching Poly Family, which is quite an interesting show.
It's a doozy of a show.
So those episodes are on Wednesday. If you want more from us, you can check us out on Patreon, where we do all of these free episodes. You get them ad free. You get a weekly bonus episode where we talk about lots of different topics, talk about ourselves sometimes. And then at the higher tier, we also give you once a month a true crime bonus episode and a Ask Us Anything episode. So please check that out and subscribe to the regular feed. And we're on all the social media at Psych Legal Pop. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellows wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
This season on The Dream.
Supplies are being provided by nurses who run out in the middle of the night and purchase diapers, but the hospital is still charging as if they still have these items.
We are digging into every topic we've ever wanted to cover on this show.
It's a spinning plate analogy. The second that you stop spinning those plates, that crashes. So you can never stop working.
The Dream Season 4 comes at you weekly starting Monday, January 20th.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.